Welcome to the Writers' Rendezvous from the South Dakota Humanities Council.
Hello, I'm Karl Gehrke of South Dakota Public Broadcasting, host of Dakota Midday, and I'm here at the 2013 South Dakota Festival of Books at the Deadwood Mountain Grand, and with me is Wyoming writer C.M. Wendelboe. Kurt, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, thank you.
Now you're from South Dakota.
Yes, I'm a Mitchell native.
And you were a law enforcement. You were involved in law enforcement for many years.
Yeah, I was law enforcement in South Dakota for 11 years, and then I moved to Wyoming, and I retired out of a sheriff's office there after 27 years.
And then you took up writing, or were you always kind of writing on the side?
Well, I always wrote. I started writing when I was a kid, and I didn't have any luck except it was good practice, you know. And when I got out of the service, I started writing short stories, and then about 17, 18 years ago, I need more room for character interaction and plot development, so I started writing novels.
Was this something that you learned more or less on your own through trial and error, or were there people along the way that kind of helped you?
Oh no, it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of reading short stories, and a lot of reading books, you know, kind of dissecting how authors did it, and that's basically how I learned is dissecting other people's work.
Is that from talking with other writers? Is that unique, or do each of you find your own way to becoming writers?
Well, you know, a lot of writers do the formal education, you know, do the MFA, and in fact, you know, my editor asked me where I had my MFA when he first gave me the contract, and I said I didn't have an MFA, I had a PhD. He got all excited and said, "Oh boy, PhD in what?" And I said, "Well, post-hole digging." So that was my formal education, just basically dissecting books.
But do you think that if you didn't have your background in law enforcement, that you'd be able to write the books that you do write?
I've written a lot of different. I've written some period westerns, and I even wrote a romance once, and just felt kinky, you know, for a grown man me writing that stuff. And so I just went back to what I like to read, and it was natural for me to write murder mysteries, just because, like I said, my law enforcement background.
So it was just a matter of finding, as they say, your voice, or finding what you felt comfortable writing, what felt true to you, honest.
Yes. Yeah, and I started writing about Dakota.
Stop you a second. You want to start right where that question is? Re-ask that question.
I don't even know what the question was.
So it's just natural.
So it's just natural.
Talk about being natural.
Okay. So it was just natural finding your own voice, or finding what you felt comfortable writing, a world that you knew more or less?
Yeah, let's say I had the background in law enforcement, and I decided to write about the Dakota, not necessarily because no one else writes about it, just because they really didn't have a voice. And you know, there's so much written about the poverty and violence and gang activity on reservations. I wanted to put a positive spin on it as well, and so that's why one of the reasons I started writing about the Indians. And
you have the three books that feature FBI agent Manny Tano?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about him and where that character came from?
Well, you know, Manny grew up in Pine Ridge in the 70s, and you think about what was going on back then. You know, pretty turbulent, you know, across the country, and American Indian movement in the Dakotas and Montana, Nebraska, Wyoming is pretty active, and particularly on Pine Ridge, and that's where Manny grew up. He grew up during that violence and that poverty, and he left the first chance he get when the FBI hired him, and he has to come back to Pine Ridge to solve a homicide of a prominent Dakota land developer, and then he gets assigned to the Rapid City field office after that, and so Manny has to work through a lot of his issues growing up, and reconnect with a lot of people that he forgot when he left, and so a lot of that is relationship issues.
Yeah, and a lot of the differences over AIM and those issues are part of the book, part of the background. In
oh, absolutely, characters. Yeah, and you know, being in law enforcement during that time, you know, law enforcement AIM was pretty well butting heads, you know, but they had some positive outcomes from a lot of their activities and stuff. You wouldn't have the red right now probably if they hadn't caused some attention to themselves, and a lot of that is a tension between the progressives and traditionals and law enforcement, and so that's all. I put a little bit in that in each novel as well.
When you were a law enforcement officer in South Dakota, did you have much contact with the reservations?
My first job was in Chamberlain, and Chamberlain is is just a short ways away from Crow Creek and Lower Brule. A lot of the folks from those reservations that come to Chamberlain, and so I had a lot of interaction with them.
And does some of that play into the background of these characters that you have in the Manny Tano books?
Oh yeah, like Manny's a composite of a lot of different people. He's a composite of a marshal and FBI agent that came, worked the reservation, came in Chamberlain, and a lot of them is a composite of some tribal and BIA officers that come in. And they come in and have coffee, and we visit. And so Manny was a little bit of this guy and a little bit of that guy, and so that's how I developed that character.
When you first developed the character of Manny Tano, did you have a mystery series in mind?
Yeah, I did, and I knew I wanted to write about the Dakota, but Manny's been with me so long, and I'd go to calls, whether it's a bar fight or a suicide or a homicide, and I'd ask, well, what would Manny do? How would Manny handle this? It was almost like I was talking to him on the seat, so in that way I started learning about Manny really intimately.
To write about a character for over the course of several books, does he become someone that, kind of maybe touching on it a little bit there, someone that who more or less becomes a separate entity, maybe with a mind of his own, and you kind of maybe have an idea for the book, but it's Manny Tano who drives the book and where it goes? Well,
a lot of what's driving it is Manny's development. They say when he fled Pine Ridge, getting hired by the FBI, he was gone for 18 years, and then he had to come back, and he denied his cultural background all this time, and so every book he gets a little bit more into his roots, and with that he develops not only as a law enforcement officer but as a Lakota.
Do you have to do quite a bit of research to understand the Lakota heritage and some of the things that Manny Tano, his background and who he is and what he does?
Yeah, and essentially I've been studying him since since I got out of the service there, and I say in '72 is when I started in Chamberlain, and I go to Pine Ridge quite a bit for research. I've got quite a few folks over there that I visit with, and I run things by, make sure it's accurate. Mm-hmm. And I did, of course, up for this new book, Death in the Greasy Grass, a lot of research up on Crow Agency, and so I get to do a lot of traveling for the research.
And it's important to have the more or less, I guess you call it, reader check to make sure that things are accurate, and this is things that'll happen, and that you're portraying things accurately.
Oh, yeah. For me, accuracy is, for what I even though it's fiction, it still has to be spot on. And my second one takes place in the Badlands, and so to actually see that area with the bombing range and stuff, I spent some time down there, and then it isn't exactly the place where you want to take a vacation. Uh-huh. But I had to get things accurate. I had to know exactly where I was going to put my bombing targets and where the action is going to take place in some of these scenes.
Well, Kurt, thanks so much for stopping by and taking
the
time to talk with us.
Thank you.
Writers Rendezvous is a production of SDPB.